How's it going, everyone? Data here, just coming at you with a little breakdown on the Seattle Kraken 2021 expansion draft selections. I just put up a video a couple days ago with my selections of who I think I would select / who I thought Ron Francis and the Kraken would select. And with their selections having come out now, I'm going to break them down, analyze why I think they made some of those picks, my thoughts on them, and kind of give them a grade for their overall draft strategy / how they're going to look and predict their first season in the NHL. So a bit more of a podcast style thing, a little data cast, as some of the people over in the Discord server have called it. So then there was some good support for this style of video in the last one. So thank you for that. If you're liking these videos, I'd love to do a lot more of them. So just let me know. But this won't be nearly as long as the last one, which was close to an hour. Just want to break down some of the selections, going through each team and talking about why I thought that pick made sense or didn't make sense. So we're starting off here with the Anaheim Ducks, and if you haven't already seen the Seattle Kraken, I'll be recapping their picks as I go through the teams here. So I have my original draft, and my original pick was Sonny Milano here for the Anaheim Ducks. My secondary pick, I said, is definitely going to be Fleury or Larson, more likely Fleury if they do go the defense route, especially considering that Sonny Milano is currently on the injured reserve. The Kraken did end up going for Hayden Fleury, which did make sense because he is a good young defenseman. Ron Francis drafted him over back when he was with Carolina. So I think this makes a ton of sense, and I am not surprised by this one at all. I think it's a good selection, and I think that he will do a lot better with a little bit more room to play on the Seattle Kraken. So that is an A-plus selection, I think, from the Anaheim Ducks. Moving to the Arizona Coyotes, I thought it would be Christian Fischer, as he had the RFA rights and the youth as compared to Tyler Pitlick. They did end up selecting Tyler Pitlick and then flipping him to the Calgary Flames, which was in exchange for a 4th-round pick in next year's draft, 2022. So pretty much just turned it into a draft pick. Not the worst thing, passing up on Christian Fischer to draft someone who gives you a 4th-round pick. It's not the end of the world. I probably would have went Fischer here. RFA rights, 24 years of age, solid enough two-way forward, but I guess, not a huge difference in the cap. I don't dislike this pick. Not exactly the guy I would have taken, but I'm okay with this. So Pitlick is going to be on the Calgary Flames, and Seattle gets a 4th-round pick for brokering the two sides, I suppose. Boston Bruins, I got this one spot on. Jérémy Lauzon, 24 years of age, cheap cap hit, RFA in 2022. This one made the most sense by far. For the Bruins, I mean. And one of my picks that I was most certain with, I remember when I was making the selection, I was a bit confused, thinking, would they go Ritchie? Would they go Kasha? And then it kind of just clicked in my mind. I said, no, of course not. They'll go with Jérémy Lauzon because, like I just said, cheap cap hit with RFA to 2022, doesn't want to get paid big time right now, like Nick Ritchie, for example. So Lauzon makes a ton of sense from the Bruins. Moving to the Buffalo Sabres, now this one was a bit of a surprise for me. Not a huge surprise, but passing on Colin Miller and going for Will Borgen, they were saying it differently in Seattle. And what really makes me laugh in the expansion draft special, they're trying to find ways to talk about these guys that they obviously know almost nothing about. Like Will Borgen, he's big and he has potential, and they use that same line for at least a dozen other players. So they did go for Will Borgen. I forgot to click it off here for... no, I did it right. Perfect. I went for Will Borgen over on the Buffalo Sabres. I don't know if I really see him becoming much. 24 years of age, hasn't really done much in the NHL just yet. Understandable that they didn't want to take the cap hit of Colin Miller, but I did think that he made the most sense for this team if it wasn't going to be Zemgus as my backup, probably. So I was a little bit surprised by this one. He has the RFA rights, and I guess he'll be given a chance to be a 7th D / bottom pair kind of guy. A bit more as opposed to Buffalo, where you got Dahlin, Ristolainen, Miller, McCabe locking out the top 4 for the foreseeable future, at least as of the expansion draft. Obviously, Ristolainen, there's been a lot of talk about him going to other teams, possibly even the Montreal Canadiens. So, hey, Will Borgen, Buffalo Sabres, not who I thought, not a bad pick. Calgary Flames now. I know a lot of people said Giordano, and I had some people surprised when I said Matthew Phillips. I thought his youth and his RFA rights would be enough to get him, simply because, do you want to take Mark Giordano? He's going to be turning 38 soon, only has one more year at 6.75. As amazing as Mark Giordano is, I will not say that he's washed. I'm not going to make some sort of excuse to say why they shouldn't take him. He's a great defenseman. But just to say that he only, it's only 1 year, and it's a big cap hit for a guy who's in his older years. So I was a bit surprised. He was my easy backup pick to Matthew Phillips, and they did go with him. He does turn into kind of that face of the franchise since they didn't end up taking Carey Price or Vlad Tarasenko, etc. So he does turn into the guy that's like, hey, look at this player, sell the jerseys, make him the face. And, I'm not going to count him out just because he's 37. He could get the fountain of youth. He's going to be blocking shots, throwing hits, getting some points, only a couple seasons removed from a Norris Trophy. No problem there with Mark Giordano, especially if it starts to work out and he scores, 50 points and he re-signs for another couple seasons at a cheap cap hit and takes a team-friendly deal, Many options out there. Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this one was a bit of a surprise. Morgan Geekie does have the extra year as RFA status, but I thought they were for sure going to go with Jake Bean. As I said, not a guy who really has a lot of room to grow on such a defense-packed Carolina Hurricanes, but maybe if Dougie Hamilton is guaranteed on his way out, that means there's a little bit of room for him now. Morgan Geekie was doing some good things for the Hurricanes. I think he had like 13 points in 38 NHL games, so not too bad for the start of his career. I'm more surprised that it wasn't Jake Bean than that it was Morgan Geekie. Of course, goalies are going to be an interesting thing right now because you have Nedeljkovic, who just got traded. You would think that Reimer and or Mrazek were both on their way out, but no. Nedeljkovic on his way out getting traded to Detroit earlier today, so they definitely have to re-sign one or both of these guys. So interesting stuff going on in Carolina, and Morgan Geekie off to the Seattle Kraken. I don't mind the pick, like I said, just probably would have went for Jake Bean. Chicago Blackhawks now. I thought that Malcolm Subban would be their third goalie. If not, maybe Calvin DeHaan, a bit more expensive. And if not, second, I think my second pick was Ryan Carpenter, actually. Third pick, DeHaan. But they go off the board. They take John Quenneville, someone who really hasn't convinced me at all in his NHL career. I know he was a first-round pick from the Devils a few years back. He's 25 now, UFA rights. Who knows if he'll... I guess he will resign. What else does he have to lose? League minimum. But I don't know. I think there are some better picks here. I would rather... If I'm taking a UFA who's not going to cost much, I wouldn't mind just taking Hinostroza, for example. I don't know why you would take John Quenneville. I don't really agree with this selection. I think this was one of the more picks on the Seattle Kraken. So, John Quenneville. There you go. Not a big fan of that one. You never know. Maybe he makes the lineup and he ends up being a solid fourth-line guy, third-line guy, but haven't really seen that yet in his career. Colorado Avalanche, this pick was based on the premise that they would be able to talk something out in the free agent talking period and get a contract signed for Gabe Landeskog. They were not able to do that. My backup was Jonas Donskoy, and that is exactly who they took. $3.9 million, signed for a couple more years, UFA rights. Will be expiring in 2023. Donskoy coming off like a career season, had really good numbers. So this makes sense for Seattle. He can be a second middle six guy. And there you go. Landeskog, I'm sure the door isn't closed to him. I'm sure they had good conversations. But, if he's going to come in free agency, why not just take Donskoy and then sign him later? So maybe it works out, maybe not. But either way, I think they get a good player from the Avalanche here. Columbus Blue Jackets, this was probably my biggest surprise out of all of them, even more than Tarasenko. I thought that Max Domi was an absolute slam dunk here. I know it's only for one more year at UFA rights, but I thought he would be like a lock to re-sign as well. They don't go for Kukan, who was my backup. They don't go for anyone who is with the little green check marks here. They go pretty off the board and take Gavin Bayreuther, I believe is how you pronounce it. Bayreuther, perhaps. Beirut, but 27 years of age, making 710,000 UFA rights, and to be absolutely honest, especially with my Columbus Blue Jackets franchise mode going on right now, I'm surprised. I don't even know this guy. I think he's a healthy scratch in Cleveland in my series right now. I'm very, very shocked they went for him. I don't know why you wouldn't take Gabriel Carlson, for example, who's 3 years younger and has an extra year until RFA status. They just take a UFA straight up. No deals, nothing happened for them to take Bayreuther. So, yeah, this was my absolute biggest surprise from the Kraken, and I do not like that pick. Who knows what's going on behind closed doors, but I think you could have gotten someone, even Kevin Stenlund. I don't like this pick. No offense to Gavin. I don't think this was the best possible pick from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Dallas Stars, this one was a surprise. I thought for sure, well, I didn't think for sure, but I thought they were going to go with a big starting goalie. Instead, they're kind of going to be splitting the starts, I guess, between Vanacek and Drieger. I thought that they'd want to get a starting goalie who has some term and has shown the ability to get it done in Ben Bishop, but they go for Jamie Alexiak, and they signed him to a big boy contract. He went from 2.137 to making what, like, I saw his breakdown of multiple seasons. It changes per year, but it's 5 years, 23 million. So that's like 4 point something per year, right? So Alexiak, great for fantasy hockey, blocks shots. He's usually like 3% owned in Yahoo leagues, but that's a big contract for him. I hope it works out for Seattle. I would have thought they'd throw money elsewhere, not at Jamie Alexiak, but could work out. He could be a second pairing shutdown kind of guy. He's big. They were looking a lot at size. I find in Seattle they looked a lot at size when they were making their picks. I would have preferred a guy like I said, Ben Bishop, and if not, maybe someone with youth like Nick Camacho or Joël L'Espérance, as I had said in my original video. But it's more the contract that's scaring me than the selection itself. But all the best for Jamie Alexiak. Detroit Red Wings now. My first pick was Nemesnikov, and my second I thought was Troy Stecher. I don't know what I was thinking, but I totally passed over Dennis Cholowski. I think I still would have said Nemesnikov, but Cholowski would have been my second pick. He's 23 years of age, RFA rights. I really am high on Dennis Cholowski as a player. I think he's very good. I think he's pretty underrated, and he's going to be great with Seattle. I think he could really have a lot of room to grow. He puts up numbers offensively, and he's just a good two-way D-man. So that's going to be tough for Detroit to lose out on a good piece of their defensive core. They already don't have much. Of course, you have Moritz Seider out there, but still, to really just have after him, you got Juice and you got Stecher as a bit of the youth-ish. But Mark Stahl's going to be out soon. DeKeyser's going to be out soon. I would have really preferred to hang on to Dennis Cholowski if I were the Detroit Red Wings. Because who are they protecting here? If I just go to protect players and then click on Detroit, the defense they protected were Leddy, Gustav Lindstrom, and Hronek. So maybe I switch Gustav Lindstrom for Cholowski, but I don't know. Or maybe even I drop like Adam Ernie and I protect for defense instead. So it was, I don't know, it's a bit questionable in my mind, but it's a great pick for Seattle. It's a more questionable, from Detroit. So really well done for Seattle to select Dennis Cholowski. Edmonton Oilers, they do, and I did click on him, they do select Adam Larson. I was thinking Oscar Klefbom perhaps as my secondary pick to Tyler Benson. Wasn't sure what was up with the injury troubles, but Adam Larson gets signed right away. $4 million for so a 4x4 over $16 million for 4 seasons. Unfortunately, the Taylor Hall trade did not exactly work out in Edmonton, but Adam Larson is really underrated. His analytics speak very, very, very highly of him. He's a good defenseman. Doesn't put up crazy stats, but he blocks, he hits, and he has really nice defensive numbers in the advanced analytics in the D zone. So good for Seattle. Larson's going to have to shoulder a lot of the ice time, and I think that he is absolutely up for that challenge. So good selection for the Kraken there. Florida Panthers, we already know Chris Drieger. I thought that he'd be more of the guy sharing the load in the backup role, but it seems as though he's going to be more of the starter. He's getting paid $3.5 million, and I wish him all the best. Just going to be quite the drastic change from going to kind of sharing the crease with Bobrovsky/Knight to really being the guy, but being able to rely on a good backup. So all the best for Drieger, who finally gets an NHL opportunity, a really good NHL opportunity. This has to be one of the more not good picks from Seattle, moving to the LA Kings here. Cale Clegg, I thought he made a lot of sense. RFA rights, 23 years of age. Instead, they go for Curtis McDermott. They wanted another big boy. He's 6'5". UFA rights for one more season more till 2022. That's nice. 4 years older, though, and hasn't shown really as much promise. Another guy who's kind of in that 7th D role. If he turns into an everyday third pair at 6'5", kind of like a Yanni Hakanpää or something on the Hurricanes, that's great. All the best, but it's a bit surprising that they took Curtis McDermott, and I wouldn't say this was one of their better selections. Really would have gone with Clegg here, or one of the younger players like Grunstrom as my secondary pick. Minnesota Wild now. I was one of the lone people that didn't say Capo Kakinen. I was thinking about the goalies they're going to take, and I kept him on the side. I thought Mason Shaw, maybe even Will Bitten would make sense, but no, they go for Carson Soucy. And I like Carson Soucy very much. He signed to 2.75 for a reason, but I didn't think they'd want to be spending the money there on their third pair D, but they did it, and he's only 26, so it's not a bad choice. It's just probably my third and most people's third pick, as Shaw / Bitten and or Kakinen were above in many people's, mock drafts. So Carson Soucy, I think he'll do very well as a third pair D for Seattle. Montreal Canadiens, I got Cale Fleury spot on here. I didn't think Drouin or Price really made sense. Neither did it make sense to really take Kulak, I thought, when Cale Fleury was here. So 22 years of age, RFA rights. Both he and his brother Hayden Fleury are going to be out there. Makes a lot of sense, and it's sad to see him go as a Canadiens fan, but he will do great. And for everybody saying, oh, Carey Price this, some people are saying he's the best goalie ever, I can't believe we're going to lose him for nothing. Other people saying, yeah, get rid of him, he's not good in the regular season, he's injury prone, the contract, blah, 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 Bergevin, he's a genius, he doesn't know what he's doing. Stop. Just stop. We all knew Carey Price wasn't going anywhere. People like to make speculations, the reporters like to make their articles. Trust in Bergevin, and you will sleep easy for all of your days. King Bergevino knew what he was doing. Was there any side deal in place? No, there wasn't. The guy made a bluff, and it paid off in spades. Yeah, you lose Cale Fleury, but everyone's losing a good player or prospect. Very rare. Only on terrible teams, no offense, are they losing nobodies. Like a guy on the Blue Jackets, oh, they lost, or the Flyers, where they lose players that don't really make an impact. Cale Fleury, yeah, he's great. But we keep Drouin, we keep Kulak, who's actually not too shabby. Weber goes on IR, long-term IR. Carey Price is here. He gets surgery. Cool. Jake Allen's here. That's why the bluff paid off. They wanted the Canadiens to pay a first and a third or a second and a prospect. Go to bed, Marc Bergevino said. He played the bluff perfectly, and that is why he is one of the best general managers in the NHL, had the most first-place general manager votes, runner-up for GM of the year. I will say it time and time again. Trust in this man. Nashville Predators, another one I got here. Calle Yarncrow. Didn't make as much sense to take Duchesne and Johansson with those cap hits. I am surprised, though, with them not taking the cap hits of a guy like Tarasenko and Domi, that they didn't take it somewhere else. So maybe they spent that money on Giordano / will spend in free agency, but Calle Yarncrow, the guy to go with $2 million down there. New Jersey Devils, this was a huge surprise for me, as although Bastian was my backup, I thought Will Butcher was a slam dunk. UFA till 2022, only $3.7 million, 26 years of age, coming off what would have been on pace for a career season, even though he only played about 20 games. So I am surprised on that front. Nathan Bastian is the guy, 23 years old, RFA till 2023. Maybe they want players who are locked down a little longer. There were not many players exposed who had a lot of term. Maybe that's something they were considering, but I am surprised that it wasn't Will Butcher. Bastian will do fine. I think he's a good player, but Butcher was my ideal selection. New York Islanders, you could pretty much go for either one of these here, Eberle or Bailey. Both UFAs till 2024, both making similar cap hits, both 31 years of age. So I thought it would be Josh Bailey. He was cheaper, and I thought he performed better. But they go for Eberle, who's 0.5 mil more expensive. And I thought maybe not quite as good as Bailey in some aspects of the game. But you do have to have a sniper out there. If you're not going to be taking a guy like Tarasenko, you got to have someone like Eberle then to be your sniper. And it does make sense. No problem with that pick at all. He was my backup there. So a good selection from the Islanders. Eberle, I wish him the best in Seattle. I think he'll do well there. Once again, being the guy. I think he did a very good job on Edmonton when he was that guy. And I think he's regained some of his poise and ability on the Islanders, had some good Stanley Cup deep playoff runs. He'll bring a lot of that to Seattle. New York Rangers, I was thinking Julien Gauthier or even maybe Ty Ronning. I want to say my backup was Colin Blackwell, but I think it was more my third choice was Colin Blackwell. As even though he has the UFA rights, I thought being 5 years older than either Ronning or Gauthier would maybe deter them a little bit. But Colin Blackwell, the selection in the end for the Rangers, coming off a very good season. And, center, it was tough to find centers in this draft as well. So I do understand the rationale for wanting to go Colin Blackwell from the Rangers. They will miss him, I think. He had a really underrated role there on that team. Ottawa Senators, this one came out of nowhere. I was thinking Dadonov, and if not Dadonov, then maybe Kopaka or someone else who is young, 23, 24 down there. But no, they go with Joey Decord, 24 years old, once again, RFA until 2023. So again, I'm seeing guys who have term and youth, not just youth. So the term is really being a deciding factor, I suppose, for the Kraken. Even though Decord, I'd be a bit surprised if he finds room in the crease. But he goes from one team that's pretty crowded to another because you got Murray, Decord, Forsberg, Hogberg, Gustafsson, and now he's going to a team that's going to have Drieger, Vanacek 1 and 2, and he can kind of slot in and be that third-ish guy depending on what they do in free agency. So it's a better situation for Decord, but he's still not quite in that backup role yet, which does make sense. But I don't know. Again, you're passing a guy like Tarasenko. I would think that Dadonov, who does have some term, would be the guy you'd go for. But Joey Decord from the Senators. Philadelphia Flyers. Shane Gostisbehere ends up getting traded to the Arizona Coyotes. Just earlier today, he did not get selected. This was probably I think this might be the biggest surprise. There's a lot of surprises out here. Not Voracek, not JVR, not Rubtsov, not Braun, not Hag, not Ghost, but Carson Twarynski. Definitely not pronouncing that right. Not even Samuel Morin or Bunnaman. None of these guys. So 23 years of age. RFA 2021, third round pick in 2016. I think he has like 1 goal in 20 some NHL games. Never been doing that much in the AHL either. So pretty surprised at this selection. I thought there'd be a side deal coming out and nothing ever did. So this one really has me scratching my head a little bit. I understand you won't want to take the cap hits of Voracek or Van Riemsdyk, but why not go for Rubtsov? He's an RFA and has an extra year and has been showing a bit more promise. He was a first-round pick in 2016. He's putting up I saw his numbers, 11 points in 46 games in the KHL. So, I'm a bit surprised. Pittsburgh Penguins, I thought Marcus Pettersson would be the guy at 25 years of age, lots of term, somewhat digestible cap hit, but they do go for Brendan Tanev, another guy who does have a lot of term, so I can understand. I see what they're doing here. $3.5 million, though, for what he does. A lot of intangibles, a lot of things that may not show up on the score sheet. Good player, hard-nosed, blocks shots, gets it done, throws the body especially. So he'll be good for Seattle. Just it's the defense that's lacking a little bit, and I thought Marcus Pettersson could have helped that. But Brandon Tanev, with all that term, was very lucrative. San Jose Sharks, this one was also surprising. I thought Nick Malak or Dylan Gambrell, but no, they end up going for Alexander True. Once again, an RFA with a 2021 expiration, though, 24 years of age. Has put up decent numbers in the AHL, so I'm not totally surprised, but I did think that Gambrell and Malak had the edge over him. But Alex True, a little bit of a youth infusion into this team. St. Louis Blues, if it wasn't Tarasenko, it had to be Vince Dunn. There's been a lot of talk about him moving out for a long time. He's an RFA. Maybe they would have lost him for even less. Actually, they would have gotten compensation if someone offer sheeted him, but maybe nothing was going to happen, and then he just ends up going to UFA in 2022. He sits a year out. Who knows? I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But I don't know. Sammy Blais was also very tempting. He is signed for another season and is an RFA, so that would have been tempting. Even Evan Fitzpatrick, if you wanted a young goalie, just a year younger than Decord, still an RFA to 2021. But I really thought Tarasenko was going to go here. I was very, very convinced it was going to be him. I think he's been not underrated, but he's been a little bit forgotten the last few seasons. People forget how good Tarasenko is. And I suppose the injuries came back to bite him in the end. Maybe they're being a bit hesitant in that regard. But regardless, it's Vince Dunn, probably one of the better players when it comes to potential on the Seattle Kraken. And I think that is a fine selection nonetheless. Tampa Bay Lightning, it was going to be Palat or Gourde. Third selection was Killorn. They go for Yanni Gourde in the end. He has the center eligibility. He does have more term as well, so that makes more sense for taking him over Palat. He signed until 2025. It's a big cap hit, so Tampa is really going to be relieved to get 5.16 off the books. They still are in some trouble, I believe, when it comes to having to fill in a team because they're under the cap, but now they're missing some players. They have to promote guys like Cal Foote, more ice time for Luke Shen maybe. Maybe Sean Day, NHL 16 legend, is going to come in here. But regardless, Yanni Gourde is a fantastic pick. He'll be second line center, something like that. Probably get some first line minutes. Absolutely makes sense for Seattle to take him. Toronto Maple Leafs, a lot of people were saying Kerfoot. I stuck with McCann, and it made sense in the end. One less year, but more upside, less cap hit, 1 year younger, RFA instead of a UFA. All the reasons that I said in my last video. They go for Jared McCann. Very underrated on the Penguins, playing behind such big names, and I think he'll be a star on the Penguins. They were on the Kraken. They were saying in the draft special that he would be the kind of guy like a sneaky William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault that you don't think much about, and then he ends up tearing it up. I don't know if I quite see it at that level because I don't think Marchessault and Karlsson were that underrated. I don't see McCann tearing it up as much as they did, like a 70-point season. But I see the point of this could be a sneaky good pick because people are going to really see how good Jared McCann is now. I love in the draft show as well, they have him wearing a Toronto jersey, just badly photoshopped over his Penguins jersey because he never even wore it for a second. So that's pretty fun. Vancouver Canucks, another one that I got here. Cole Lind, 22 years of age, one of the younger players that was eligible with the highest potential. 33rd overall pick just a few years back. RFA rights in 2021. I think this one is another slam dunk. Made a ton of sense, and I'm glad that Seattle pulled the trigger on Cole Lind because there were some other ones they didn't pull the trigger on that was having me scratch my head a little bit. Braden Holtby would have made sense here in this situation, I find. Like, I was saying you go Bishop, Drieger, and then your third goalie is Malcolm Subban. Instead, they're going with Drieger and Vanacek, who are both kind of fringe starters who have shown their ability to start when called upon. You could have gone Holtby, Drieger. You could have gone Bishop, Drieger, but they're going Drieger, Vanacek, which I understand. There's a lot of different possibilities, and I do like that Cole Lind was the guy that they could have taken instead. I'd rather pass on Holtby and take Lind than it ends up being like, oh, we got, Travis Boyd. There are some other good selections here as well. Highmore wouldn't have been bad, but Cole Lind goes to the Kraken. Washington Capitals, I thought it was going to be Brendan Dillon, again thinking that they have to form some defensive core, plus his rights till 2024, but they do go for Vitek Vanacek, who is an RFA in 2022, played a lot of minutes for when Ilya Samsonov was injured. It allowed Phoenix Copley or Henrik Lundqvist, whoever's going to be there next season, to be backing up Ilya Samsonov, who's going to be getting really the majority of the starts. So I do see the logic of the pick, and I don't mind it at all. It's just I'm more afraid for the defense right now. That's the thing that's scaring me a little bit. Winnipeg Jets, Mason Appleton, slam dunk, easy choice, 25 years of age, coming off a career year, RFA till 2022, nothing to say there. Dylan DeMello wouldn't have been bad either with his rights till 2024, but I do like Appleton very much. And there we go. We are at the end of the expansion draft. As you can see, we have only 18 out of 20 2021 22 contracts. So that's where signing guys like Larson and Drieger come in. So really it would be at 20 out of 20. Just over the minimum salary cap by about $9 million and lots of cap space to spare. So when you go and look at the depth chart here on the Seattle Kraken here on Cap Friendly, if I refresh it, last modified a couple hours ago, we can see just an idea of the organizational breakdown. A first line, Yarncrow, McCann, Eberle. Second line, Tanev, Blackwell, Donskoy. Third line, Turinsky, Geeky, Appleton. Fourth line, True, Bastian, and Lind. I wouldn't say this is anywhere close to a playoff team. Maybe it's one of those funky years that they finish in 23rd place, and because the Pacific is so bad, they make the playoffs. But there definitely has to be some pieces that get added to this team first, and I'm sure they will in free agency with a lot of cap space as well to spend. Defense is where it looks a bit better. Giordano Larson, Alexiak Dunn, and Susie Fleury. Drieger backed up by Vanacek. You got Quinville, Lozon, McDermott, and don't forget Yanni Gourde as well. Scratches an injured reserve, and then you have all these guys down in the minors. I think Dennis Chalowski could definitely challenge for an NHL spot. Cale Fleury could be pushing as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys are being mixed and matched around. And that leaves Seattle right now with $30.7 million in cap space. Only 21 out of 50 contracts, so lots of things that they can still do. They're going to be making some moves at the draft, whether it just be drafting players or making more trades. I don't know if there's going to be more flips, as it looks like they only flipped Tyler Pitlick. But I do like that they're going for players who have term. They're bigger names, I guess, like Eberle, Gourde, Tanev, Alexiak Larson. They all have term, which is nice. it's going to be interesting next season to say, okay, do McCann, Yarncrow, Appleton, Giordano, Fleury, Vanacek, etc., do they resign? That will be a very interesting thing because a lot of it rides on first season success, and thankfully they're in the Pacific where maybe they can find that a little easier. But all that to say, it could have been a better expansion draft in my opinion. I think that there could have been some different choices made. There could have been some better depth. And like I said, maybe there's a lot that we don't know about. Maybe all that salary cap that's going to be left over here is being used for free agency. I don't know who's going to be out there. Are they making a push for Dougie Hamilton or Gabe Landeskog after they spoke to them during the exclusive talking period? Who knows? But I will say that it was a bit of an underwhelming draft. There was a few eyebrow-raising selections. For the most part, they were rational choices. But of course, you always got to wait and see what happens. The framework is there. The skeleton crew is good to go. But now we gotta complement those guys well. I don't, if you just let Gord, Eberle, and like Donskoy, McCann go out there and just try to do it every night with Giordano, if he's getting more tired, just out there on the blue line, I don't think it's gonna really go well. So it's hard for me to predict so far away, but I do say that there is a nice mix of youth, a few really good picks in Dunn, Lauzon, and Cole Lind, if they weren't going to take bigger names like Tarasenko, for example. So I thought this team could have been better off the bat, but that's not the way they're going with it. We'll wait and see what they do with the cap space, and there's still a lot of time to go until the start of next season. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. How do you think Seattle did? What do you predict their season to be like? Who can't you believe they passed on, and who are you totally shocked that they selected? Do you like this style of video as well? I'd love to hear just a little podcast style, DataCast discussion breakdown. Shout out to my good friend Christoph, who sent me a personal text saying that he really wanted to hear me do a breakdown of these players. I wasn't planning on doing it, but thank you for the support for these types of videos, which pushed me to want to upload this today. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the breakdown, leave a like. If you want to hear more videos like this and NHL franchise mode in 21, NHL 7 dynasty mode, Twitch streams, etc., all that stuff, leave a subscription. You'll be made aware of all the uploads on the channel. All the links you need for everything down in the description, Twitch, Discord, Twitter, etc. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.